I'd like to welcome to the stage the cast and crew of The Lie. Director Veena Sud. Stars Mireille Enos. Peter Sarsgaard. Joey King. Cass Anvar. Devery Jacobs. Patty Kim. Danny Kind. And producers Alex Madigan and Jason Blum. So I guess I wanted to start something that really struck us when we first saw it. I wanted to start by talking about the role of privilege in the film, and where it came in throughout the process, and what it means to you in the production.
In terms of the characters?
In terms of the characters, yeah.
I mean, one thing that we talked about a lot, and I thought about a lot when I was making this film, is first of all, what suburbia, represents, and what being middle class or upper middle class, educated, civilized, et cetera, means, and then a horrible tragedy happens, and how the veneer of civilization drops off so quickly. We've all been in various scenarios that are tragic, or national disasters or natural disasters, and I was in a really terrible hurricane in Mexico once when I was in a production, and we had no water for I think about 5 days. We were living on bottled water, and how quickly civilization fades away when you can't flush the toilet and you can't wash your clothes. And that's always fascinated me, that idea of coming from a place where we think we are one thing, and then something happens and we become very different.
Another thing that's really interesting is, when you watch something about a fractured family, but it's still a family, and you see them really work as a unit, as a family in a way, even though they're fractured, the bond that they've built. And I was wondering for you guys what the prep was like for on set, before set, what the pre-production was like.
Had to hang out with each other. I mean, it's very simple. I mean, the challenge in this movie for the actors was how to go into this day after day and not be like grinding our teeth on the pavement, to try to find the variety and the love and the connections and all of that honestly come very easily, I think, between us.
Yeah, I also think that there was having a sense. Thank you, Cass. Having a sense of a lot of fun with each other too is really important. You see this scene where they pull me into the garage and he pushes me, and I tell him that I pushed I pushed Brittany because of him. Right before that scene, we were just listening to Bruno Mars and jumping around to get ourselves out of breath and pumped up for the scene. So keeping some sense of happiness and just fun was really important and helpful.
We were all away from our actual families, and part of what Peter needed to do to make it through this film is talk endlessly about how in love with his wife he is, and his 2 daughters. And so I was like, oh, we're doing that? That's awesome. I can talk about mine too. So we just sit and talk about how lucky we were to have...
Show pictures, videos.
Yeah, and then go do these brutal scenes.
Yeah. Normal, loving parents.
I met my daughter about 2 days ago on the red carpet. So it's movie magic.
It's funny. This is a film that lives and dies on the performances, and I think that all of the performances are so strong. This is such a fantastic cast. And I was wondering, kind of for the rest of you, what drew you to the script when you first read it?
I had a very interesting experience when I read it for the first time, because I was in between projects, and I really had a very short period of time to read it, so I read it quite quickly, and I had a very visceral reaction to the script. I was actually quite incensed by it. And I was like, and I had worked with Peter on a previous show, and I was like, what the hell is he doing this racist movie for? And I'm like, and then I talked about it with my friend, who had not seen me react like this before, and she goes, well, who wrote it? Who directed it? And who's And so then I looked up Veena's and went, wait a second, a woman of color wrote this. And then I started looking her up on I said, she did 7 seconds. I'm saying, okay. And I reread it. And the second read through, I realized that my reaction had been from the point of view of the character. And it had hit me so hard as the character that I reacted to it without realizing. And when I read it the second time, I went, no, this thing has been beautifully and brilliantly crafted, so that this subtle kind of secondary layer of the entitlement and the racism that Sam's character feels, it was so delicately woven in there that it affected me without me realizing it as the actor. So that was my experience, and that's why I immediately just jumped on it. I said, this is an important movie right now that I have to do.
I wanted to make sure if any of you wanted to throw in.
I had the opportunity to work with Veena in The Killing and Midday. So when I got the breakdown and saw Veena and saw Midday, and that Kenji had worked with Rebecca, I was like, that's me. That's my part. And then Veena's script, her words just speaks for themselves. It was just so beautiful. So I was so grateful to be a part of this movie with these great people. And it was such a powerful story of love and what we do for each other.
And I wanted to make sure, I asked the producers, I understand the production maybe came together a little quickly, so I was wondering what the challenges were there and what it was like just putting the film together on that end. I know it's a big question, you know.
Well, it's one of these things where it's always like a great deal of lead up to actually going into prep, but it was actually the movie, which Veena adapted so brilliantly, was a German film called We Monsters, which a colleague of mine who I worked with had seen at the Toronto Film Festival in 2015. And right after that, we acquired the rights, and Veena was the only person who we approached to adapt it. And fortunately, she decided to come on to direct it, which was really exciting. And, you know, the Blumhouse just came on, you know, really quickly, and they were so hugely supportive, and just ushered us into a production period that was quick, but everything just came together really quickly.
I remember. Well, I'll answer the first question. More to your point, I think The Killing is just one of the great shows of the golden age of TV. I really did. Give these guys a hand for it. And our job, you know, you hope for the moment. I think Kim Hodger, who's here, called me and said, you know, the folks behind The Killing have this script. That is not a call that happens often. So I was in before I started reading, and once I started reading, I was really in. So that's the answer to one. And then I remember there was this one moment when we got together pretty quickly. We said, let's do it, and we had a staff meeting. And I think I don't remember the date. I guess it was like October, something like that. And it was very clear in the staff meeting there was availability issues with actors, and very clear we weren't going to make it. And I called up Veena. I said, look, I love this. I'm excited to make it, but you know, the only way we can do this is if we have a script and a locked budget in like 5 days, and it is impossible. I mean, yeah, if you do that, we'll do it, but I'm sure it's not going to happen. 5 days later, we had a locked budget and a script, and we shot in 10 weeks after that. It was very, very cool. And the script, exactly. It used to be hot out in the script. Exactly.
It was summertime at one point, and then, yeah.
And Canada.
Yeah, then we were shooting Toronto. I want to say one thing, too, though, just in terms of the production. This is my first film on this level, and I really want to just give Alex and Jason and the Blumhouse team just such respect, because I've been in this industry for a while and working on the television end, and I never dreamed that I would come in and get the amount of artistic freedom and support. I feel all of us, you know, in the cast, in post, myself, we were given a type of freedom that I feel is what people in the 70s had, you know, when great films were made. And really, I feel like, you know, I was very lucky in television to witness and be part of a time when Netflix changed the terrain of television. And I feel, you know, with Jason and with Blumhouse, I'm seeing the terrain of movie making changing. You're changing the way films are made. We're able to make things really fast now. You know, you're not in development, from what I've heard, for like 5 years, 10 years in a nightmare kind of world of you're heartbreaking, and you're elevating by allowing us this type of freedom. You're elevating the art form and just revolutionizing movie making. And I think it's a super exciting time to be part of Blumhouse.
Okay, well, I want to open up to the audience. Does anybody have any questions? I'm looking around. Right here?
So, I haven't seen the German movie. I can't imagine Germans do black comedy very well. But if you were listening to us, there was a lot of laughter and kind of release. Is that something you were going for?
So the question was, he hasn't seen the original source material, but he felt like this played a little bit like black comedy at times. Was that something you were going for in terms of a release from the tension?
You know, it's interesting you ask that. I usually try, when I'm writing something or adapting something, to just experience it as the characters would, and less as an observer. So trying to live through a story the way every single person in that story would live through it. I was not going for laughs. What I'm starting to recognize, though, and appreciate, is that the tension is so thick. Like when Patty says, piece of shit, like it's the funniest joke I've ever written in my life, you know? Like, I'm happy people are laughing at a line like that. I mean, and Patty does it so well. But yeah, no, it wasn't something actively I went for, but it's interesting to kind of see a film, you know, have life and start eliciting reactions that are really, really interesting to me.
I always find it's the natural thing. If you put the stakes that high, I mean, what do they say for comedy? They say, make the stakes really high. Really high. And, you know, we top ourselves so many times that I love that. I actually was talking to someone earlier, and I was trying to imagine the funeral dirge version of this movie. And I'm so thankful that we made this beautiful film.
Mm.
Yeah.
Here?
So, you know how you guys did the whole joke, teenager thing, because that's what teenagers do? Have you guys done anything stupid? Probably not as intense as that, because I know I have, but not like that.
So the question is, as teenagers, have you ever done a prank or a joke like this? Maybe not on this level. Or on this level.
Well, I've always been kind of like my family gets really nervous on April Fools. Like, that's the type of person I am. But like my favorite prank to pull, and this is gonna sound lame in comparison to faking a murder, but my mom's kind of like a neat freak, so I know that if like things are left out, she'll always pick it up. So my favorite prank to pull on her is to fill like a mug with water, cover it with saran wrap, flip it over on the table, pull the saran wrap out from underneath it slowly, and like sometimes, unfortunately, it happens to be like near a computer or something damageable, but like last time I did that, because you know, I know that she's gonna come in and be like, cups, and no, and then just pick it up and water goes everywhere, or like any liquid of your choice, really. And last time I did that, I was like, I wish I'd seen it. Like I was upstairs, I don't know what I was doing, and then I just hear, Joey! And yeah, it was one of the greatest moments of my life, so. Devery?
I mean, I'm not usually the one to prank. I'm usually on the recipient end of that. I mean, I don't wish that I could be as like intense as this movie, but I don't know. Like in my relationship, like I'm scared every 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm easily scared too. Like if someone sneaks up on me and I don't know they're there, like
Oh, no.
even if I like hear a little something, I'm just like,
You
oh
were
my God.
terrified when we were in that creepy old house in Caledon where we were at the bed and breakfast and we started
Oh
telling
my
scary
God.
stories. You were the biggest
Oh
chicken
my
and you're in
God,
so many
it was
scary
haunted
movies.
because I had heard that some woman died in the room I was sleeping in. We were staying at some bed and breakfast for the river scenes, and there was like we were staying. It's like people had died there. Like of course I'm freaked out. I don't want to stay there. But the food was really good.
It was really good.
All right, do we have other questions here?
First of all, let me just say that the performance was outstanding. The movie is great. It kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. And I loved it. My question is it possible for you to send a version of this to the White House so that Donald Trump can see how dangerous it is to lie?
So for anybody that didn't hear that in the balcony, the question was, is it possible for you to send this to the White House so that Donald Trump can see how dangerous it is to lie?
Veena?
And it makes you feel bad to keep the secret.
Does anybody want to take that? Jason?
Nothing to say.
We'll send it. I don't know if they'll watch it, but we'll send it.
Right here?
My question is for Mireille, and I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm a huge fan of Joey as well. Oh my God, I don't know how many times I watched her kissing this year, but yeah, and I'm a huge fan of Veena as well. So my question is for you because like Peter is the bad guy of the story, and everybody's like he's a piece of shit, he's the bad guy, but then she's lying, and then Mireille turned into a murderer. So how did you go from that? Like really well-said mom who knows everything that she has to do, like everything's calculated, to like kill that guy who wanted to denounce your daughter.
One tiny step at a time. I mean, yeah, no, but I think that the interesting thing that happens, and it's compressed, you know, it actually happens quite quickly, but each bad mistake that they make, each time one of them is prepared to nudge the other one forward, then that mistake means they're not only covering up for her lie, but for their lies as well. And then it just tumbles, and then stress and lack of sleep and rediscovered love for this child and blah, 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 and for each other, and then, you know, some misguided choices.
Well, actually, one of the things I really liked about the film is how there's no real black and white in that, and it's all shades of gray. I mean, even Sam's character, who is probably the most sympathetic and has the least. Even he is willing to go to quite extreme lengths to figure out what has happened to his daughter, and he manhandles this young lady and goes after. I mean, there are shades of gray throughout the whole thing, which is one of the things I loved about the film. Was just it's not a black and white type of tale.
Back here. We have time for a couple more. So the question was just for the back. How different was it working on this versus The Killing, and how has your relationship changed?
May I? So on The Killing, Veena was our showrunner and our writer, so she understood every detail of this remarkable world that she'd created. And then she was sharing that experiences with these wonderful directors that were coming in and doing the episodes. So even though Veena was overseeing, she respectfully gave the directors the space that they needed to direct the episodes. And in this, Veena was writer, director, friend, confidant. She was everything, and she was balancing all of those different worlds so remarkably. I was like jaw-dropped, awestruck every single day. The way that she would move in between the crew, Peter, our incredible DP, talking about the visual world, and then come in, the way that she talked with the actors, the way she just kept digging and digging and digging to find out like the most kind of complex and raw version of this story was inspiring.
Thank you, you're so sweet. For me, I just want to say I had the there's so many stories, there's so many pleasures of our 5 years, 4 seasons on The Killing together. And looking back after doing this film with Mireille and being, on the ground with her and the rest of this incredible cast for 21 and a half days, it felt like for 5 years I got to quietly write and then release, and then fall in love with this beautiful woman named Sarah Linden from afar in an odd way. And it felt like in this film and in this experience, we were like close all the time. And it was just such a wonderful, it's for any of you out there who are writers, who want to direct or are thinking about it, it's a viscerally different experience, to be in the trenches with the actors. And writers, I think sometimes we imagine something and then nothing ever can be different from the imagination. When you get to direct, you get to see, you guys are usually way righter than we are. Because the actors are following an instinct. They're following instincts, they're following the moment, they are truly in the moment, they bring their own material, their own lives to that moment. So it was a rich way to, get closer to this woman I've admired for so long, and the rest of this incredible cast. So thank you guys for the joy of our freezing cold winter in Toronto.
We can take one more. I'm going to go right here. So it was a comment about Blumhouse raising the bar on what you can do on a modest scale and giving writers and directors freedom, like you were mentioning. I want to wrap it up by just kind of asking, is there a secret to making that happen? Is there a secret
there is
to
a
putting this
secret. I'll
together?
just say one thing. First of all, it's really, really kind of you, and I really appreciate it. And there are a lot of people from the company here, and on behalf of all of them, I thank you. But what I would say, which is a really interesting and really rewarding thing for me personally, is that in the beginning, when we were doing these movies, everyone talked about, low budgets, big profit, and it was hard to get the more important thing to me, which is the geniuses are here. We're not geniuses. We're business people, and we created a model. But the key of it, and I don't always talk about low budgets because you make a lot of money when the budget's low. I talk about low budgets for exactly the reason that you said, which is that you can choose things. When you have a $100 million movie, there have to be 4 movies that were like it, that were successful, that came out in the last 5 years. When you have a $3 million movie, you can choose it because there's no movie that's been like it in forever. So when you reduce the cost, you reduce the risk, and you can take chances on things that are different. And it's really great that you recognize that. And I appreciate it, and thank you.
Well, I want to say on behalf of us, I'm glad you came on board and made this movie, and thank you all so much for coming and sharing it with us.